everyone. This is about the environment variables in PlayWright for TypeScript that we are going to look at now. Uh, Generally, whenever we look for environment variables, it is for the purpose of already existing environment related, information like which is the user who is logged in, which is the operating system currently being used, what is the path environment variables value. These are the things which are by default available in the system environment variable. Okay, so in case for my programmatic manipulations for QA server, one separate URL I want to use for the tests. Usually, I can simply have a test in which the user navigates to a URL, performs some test, and then after validation of a particular process, the test is pronounced as a success or a failure. So this is a general flow of events. In case to the already existing environment variables, I want to add something like the base URL. For example, the same test should not be difficult for us to configure whether the current test is using a particular URL to do the tests in QA server. If I simply modify the base URL, I should be able to do the same test in the the production as well, because other objects are going to be the same. Application URL only is going to be different, right? So supposing I want to configure and run the test for different URLs at different points in time. At that time, what do I do? Okay, so for this one, I have got a PlayWright test that I have defined. So in the tests folder, I've got a simple file, which is env vars environment variable example. I've got this PS file with two tests. Basically, it's a simple skeletal test. I don't even have any other body of the code, test code, etc. Right now, if I want to print, so this is a particular place where one test begins, isn't it? So here I'm simply printing the environment variables which are already there in the system, like username, operating system. Supposing I want to add the path environment variables value, I can append and print it as well. For keeping it crisp, I'm just simply printing only these two variables values. Right now in the second test, I will comment out this one. We will come to that later. Let us consider that there is only one test out here and another test with nothing. Okay, so this test, first one, is going to print the default environment variables values. Okay, let us come to even this one a bit later. Let's keep it very, very simple for us to understand the concept and then go ahead with the other processes. How do I run tests in TypeScript for PlayWright? I have to go to the tests tab and I can run it right from here as well. Process.env is something which is going to refer to the environment variables which are there in the system already. We don't have to do anything about it. Del is my username, and then Windows NT is my operating system. So you can see the Dell is my username. If you can go to this PC and if you go to the the users, C colon users, who are the users? Dell and public are there right now. I'm logged in as Dell. So my username is Dell currently. The current environment variables which are available in the system are printed and the test comes out. Simple, right? Supposing I want to use already existing environment variables. To that list, I want to add, my own user-defined environment variable. For example, the base URL or the URL, whether it is in QA, prod, staging environment, it is going to be different. In that case, how do I configure that in PlayWright for TypeScript? So here, I need to create a folder called env. It can be anything, but just for us to comprehend that it is a environment variables, I create a variable folder env. Under that, I create right now for my own reference. I'm creating .env.local. This is the name of the file that I have to create, and I will put in the base URL or the URL equal to. In this case of QA environment, local environment, I have to use this URL to do the testing. In the case of production environment testing, the same test can be done with this productionexample.com URL. This is only for sample, okay, not for any test. I'm not doing any test out here. Now, how does Playwright know that it has to pick up the appropriate URL from either the local or the production environment? How does it know? For that, we need something called as a package called as uh, .env. .env is a package available in Playwright. Okay, in Node.js, you will be able to install the .env package, npm install .env. When I just give a command over here in the terminal, I npm install .env. This is the command I have to give. So if I want to use these kind of add-on environment, my own variables I want to include in the environment and be able to use it in my tests selectively, I have to install npm install .env. So I have to install this. Since I already installed it, I am not installing it right now. Once you install it, go to playwright.config.ts and you have to import this package that you have actually installed by giving the install command just now. And if you want to pick up the appropriate uh, file, whether it is prod or whether it is the local or a QA environment file, how do I go about it? I create a variable called as env in my playwright config.ts and process.env.env. If it is not set, I have to make it as local. So how do I set a variable called as env? What is this env? Let us go down and you will be able to see that I am going to configure env to be having a value local or prod. How do I set it? I have to set the, if you notice the bottom part, terminal, after installing the package, that is the .env package, what we need to do is I have to set my, it can be env1, env2, etc. $env is going to be static. $env colon env equal to prod I am setting right now. If I set it as local, let's see what happens. When I set it as prod from my terminal, okay, so my local variable will be set with env as that of the prod environment. So how it is going to pick up the value URL? So I will have to store this value. So E2E, from which file it is going to pick up the value. You can see that env file path equal to path.resolve means current folder name of the project. And this path, it will evaluate the .env according to whatever I set here. See here, I set it as prod. So therefore, it will substitute the value prod over here. And you can see that the value URL will be picked up from where? E2E, env, .env.prod. So this is the file which will be referenced. And when it is loading this, it is also going to inject this value into the local environment already existing value list. This is what is going to happen in your playwright config.ts. Once it does that, Once you set this environment variable to prod, the PlayWright config.ts will make sure that it picks up the appropriate environment file, and you will be able to use this value as though you're using the existing environment variable list, but with your own URL. Okay, so this is what is supposed to be done. So let us see what gets printed out here. Since I set it to prod, I will want it to pick up the production environments value, right? So a production environments value is going to be prod example.com should be printed. Already also it is doing the same thing because I set it to prod. If I make it as local, let me make it as local. Let it pick the value from local. Okay, and then you run this npx playwright test and the specific spec.ts file. So basically it is printing the Dell, Windows, etc. So here it is supposed to be picking up. So let's run it out here from the test directory envvar.spec.ts. Since I set it to local right now, it should pick up from local environment file. So according to the setting that I do using the env, so when do I have the undefined coming in? So in this particular, so it is not injecting the value. So let's cut this up and equal to local. Okay, and npx. This one, if I run this, it is supposed to print the advantageonlineshopping.com. Yeah, so it is picking it up from the QA file, that is the environment file. Because I set it to local, the URL is advantageonlineshopping.com. Suppose I set it to prod, the configuration file will be picked up from the production. So therefore, it will have to run it with the URL that is printed, which is there in the prod example.com. Yeah, prod example.com is getting picked up. So selectively, I can make it pick up the appropriate environment variables. So this is about the system environment variables and how we can add the appropriate our own user-defined environment variables into the system, okay, and make it work like as though it is running in the QA server by just modifying the URL, etc. Another way I want you to see, right now we are processing and we are printing these values. If you look at another test in which I've got nothing else but this testinfo.project.name is there, right? So where does this value come from? Testinfo is something read from the playwright config.ts file itself. So it's not from environment variable, it is from the configuration file which is being read. So in this test info, you have a place called as projects. Usually the three browsers usually by default will be given. Right now, I have just commented out other browser types. I'm running this test only against Chromium, and the name of the project will be Chromium, right? So this is what I want to print. I want to print what is the name of the project, the value of the name property defined in playwright.config.ts. So it is in the project.name. I will be able to print Chromium. So in addition to Dell, Windows, NT, what you see at the bottom, prodexample.com, Chromium also should be printed, with which I will be able to specifically do some other test, or you can even, name is Chromium, use, if you want to use the value which is in the other devices, then in some program to print titles in the reports, etc. You can use this number of devices, whatever information you have, you can print it on top. Okay, so for that purpose, let us run this. I am setting the environment to production, and after uncommenting this one, let me consciously save this, because sometimes it happens that, for want of saving, it does not run it properly. So second test, I wanted to run as well, and print Chromium after the production example.com. That is the URL picked up from the environment variable. So you can see that Chromium is getting printed. You can see this, right? So this is the test info variable value, which is there. It's in the JSON format, isn't it? Just like your XPath. The test info means anything to do with the Playwright config file. It's in the form of JSON formats, and you can see that name, I'm able to pick up the value. If I access the name value, I'm able to pick up the value stored in the name in the project area, correct? So this is something to do with the environment variables in Playwright. We can use it to the maximum extent possible for reusing code to make it modular, and use this best practice. And I hope you understood the concept. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.